Hello, business people of the world. Today is Sunday, May 7th, 2017, and welcome to Business Tribulations, where we will talk about business and economic events from around the world. Let's introduce ourselves first. Adam, please tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Alonso. As you said, my name is Adam. I come from Sweden, and I'm currently doing a bachelor's in finance at UIB in Beijing, where I've lived for the past almost 5 years now.
Very nice. And you, Matthias, please introduce yourself.
Good day, everyone. Pleasure to have me on the show here. So I have a background in hospitality management. I studied in Switzerland. I myself am Swiss and from Hong Kong. And so I'll try to cover some of the managerial sides on this show.
Very nice. And, your host, Alonso, which is me, and I am a consultant at a company called Everis, and I have a background in organizational psychology, which is basically marketing and HR. So today in news we will discuss talk about the new Tesla model and what does this mean for Tesla. We will talk about the Alitalia bankruptcy and the oil price dump and the French elections. So let's get into the first topic of today. Let's talk about the Tesla model. What does this mean for Tesla? What does this mean for the company? We have here the financial statements. Do you want to talk about these, Adam?
Yeah, sure. But before I talk, I'm not going to go into the depth of the financial statements because it's all being summarized like in various news. So if you're watching the news, then you're going to be very aware of what's going on. But Tesla releasing the Model 3 is basically their effort trying to reduce the price of their products and going into a more mass production, as some of you might know already. So, for example, they're building like mega factories and, just utilizing, in general, just utilizing economies of scale, just to try to reduce the price.
Because the new model, the Model 3, comes with even more things. Looks like a bit like a hatchback, and it's actually only priced at $35,000, which is becoming less of a luxury and more of a day-to-day vehicle.
I think that's a viable price for anyone, considering that the Model S, I think, is like $130,000 or something like that.
Yeah, and also all the Model, no, not the Model S, sorry, the Model 3. All the Model 3s that will be sold in second hand for so that people can buy this new model. It's actually going to be priced even less, so people are going to be able to afford at least a second-hand Tesla car. So this is very good for the environment, which is to say. Matthias, you wanted to say something about also the new Tesla Model 3?
Yes, exactly. So basically, the Tesla Model 3 will aim at households that have an income between 50 and 100,000. So they're really trying to reach the masses now with this car. And one interesting fact about it is that 50% of the people that actually said they wanted to swap to Tesla Model 3 are Toyota owners. So this could cause a problem in the future, since Tesla is still a bit shaky sometimes in their delivery. And it is a known fact that Toyota owners have very high standards, as Toyota is one of the best quality companies that you can get a car from. So this challenge could maybe arise in the future, but we will see how it turns out.
Very nice. So then, do you think it would be bad for Toyota as well then? Is Toyota realizing that they have a very big competitor and that they're taking from their market quota?
I mean, obviously, this is always a challenge, yeah, for any company. And since now we see that Tesla is going to go after other markets, and Toyota obviously has to try and figure out how they can combat this, either with a new model or just by finding out what their customers really want to have.
Yeah, just like
So,
Matthias is saying, I think he's really right, and Tesla is basically a threat to everyone in the automotive industry. Like
exactly.
even though it seems like they're taking most of their customers from Toyota, I think you mentioned previously, Matthias, that BMW customers tend to stay with BMW and they don't really want to move over to Tesla. But I still think that they might be a threat to companies like BMW.
100%, you're completely right, because like we've also seen that BMW with their i8 and other models, they're also in the electric car business. So obviously, you know, Tesla can take shares from any consumer that is willing to swap to electric cars and sees a future in that. So you're very right what you say, you know, it's not just Toyota that we highlighted here, it can be any other brand as well.
Would you guys consider buying a Tesla?
I think it's a very nice car, and I mean, obviously they're innovating. They pushed for this new electric cars, even though before Tesla, I think it was Ford who tried to create hydrogen cars, which didn't really work out because it was very expensive and it would have been very bad for the global markets from other things if we had hydrogen cars. Especially, it wasn't a really, I think, really approved idea, because people thinking, oh, you know, green cars, that's pointless. You know, we have diesel cars if you want to be green or whatever. So I think it's they pushed for a new type of market, and other companies are like trying to adapt now. There's electric smarts running around Madrid right now, so it's actually possible that you can get an electric car for really cheap. The i3 as well is. I see it quite a lot here in Madrid. I don't know if you guys get to see it much.
Yeah, the BMW i3, yeah.
So, anyways,
like I've been seeing actually in Beijing that Tesla is very popular, especially when they introduced their like military grade filter system. Because like you know we have the smoke problem here in China, right? And the filter system actually like you know makes the air like on a military grade clean, which has been like very popular for families, I think. So you do see like a lot of Teslas now, like almost every day if you go out, like you can spot one.
That's great.
I mean, the interesting thing is that the Tesla S was actually a luxury car and still is. So as you said in the beginning, the Tesla Model 3 would then replicate this image, but then make it accessible for the mass. And the interesting fact also about Tesla as a company is that a lot of people make the link between the high-tech smartphone market and see Tesla as, like, for example, Apple, because in also how the way they do their business. Apple was really smart in developing everything themselves, from the phone to the to the software. And we have the same with Tesla. They're trying to develop everything in-house instead of having everything outsourced like a lot of other companies do.
Yes.
So this might be a key strength that Tesla's going to have for the future. And one problem that Tesla was actually facing was the steady supply of batteries, because all these cars need a battery. And now they're in the brink of making a deal, I think, with a company in Nevada that will be able to supply them a steady flow of batteries that will also secure them revenue on another branch by selling, for example, these batteries instead of having their customers going to third-party companies and buying batteries for cheaper. So I think... Yeah, please
go ahead,
Adam.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, you mentioned that that they do most of their research in-house, and here I kind of want to move on to what's currently happening with their stock price. If you guys have read about that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so it's been pretty interesting. Just recently, as I mentioned before, their Q1, their first quarter report for the year, was actually like affected them quite negatively because the revenue was less than what analysts expected. Um, but in general, I think Tesla is one of the companies that has an intense amount of goodwill. Are you guys familiar with what goodwill is in
Yes.
accounting
But
terms?
explain it to the listeners, should they not be.
Okay, so goodwill is basically um, like all the company's assets minus the stock price. So what I mean by that is what are people willing to pay beyond what the company is worth just by the book value. So if the company has a very high goodwill, then that essentially means that a lot of people are willing to pay extra just for the brand name or for the possible future success of the company.
Hmm.
And this this
Exactly.
this kind of relates to what you said, Matthias, that they do a lot of their research in-house, and that means it's really hard to, in general, to like determine like have a really good valuation on IP, intellectual property, and that is an explanation for the very high goodwill.
Exactly. I mean, we can like even show it in numbers. Tesla, I think, is valued at 50 billion, whereas Ford, that is producing much more cars, is valued much lower. And
Yeah.
as you say, this is a perfect example of goodwill. Tesla's brand name and the potential that people see in this brand is so humongous that drives the stock price up and makes, like, it could even say a bubble in that sense.
Yeah, actually, Tesla just recently surpassed them in terms of market capitalization, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for the viewers who don't know what market capitalization is, it's all the shares like that Tesla has emissioned times the share price, and that's usually like the way how you measure like the how big a company is. It doesn't really like determine like the true like how truly big a company is, but it can give you some idea. And just recently, Tesla surpassed Ford and GM, I think.
Well, GM wasn't really that difficult. They've been
Yeah, maybe.
having problems, a lot of problems lately. But it's true that, I guess, in conclusion, what we can get out of all of this is that uh, innovation is key. It's a very evolving market, and they've accelerated this evolution. And I don't know if you've ever been in a Tesla, but it's not only electric cars, it's also everything that comes with them. They break every kind of aspect of what's a car supposed to be. They offer also a kind of like a lot of software inside the car as well to move around, to listen to the radio, to receive calls, to read WhatsApps and everything. So
Mm.
it's they kind of push also for innovation. So it's not only a car what you're buying; it's kind of a vehicle where you can practically, be stuck in traffic and not have a problem with it because your vehicle is so complete with stuff, with cool stuff. You can be reading WhatsApps without really um, putting your life in danger, for example. So obviously, in conclusion, they've broke with every aspect of what a car's supposed to be. They evolved the market, and obviously, it's probably bad if there's this bubble and what you guys have been talking about right now. But let's see what happens. What are your predictions for this company then?
I mean, at
Matthias,
this
you can
point,
go.
it's quite. At this point, it's very difficult to, like, give something rock solid. But obviously, I mean, the trends are fantastic. I mean, the people that want to buy or give their trust already in the brand name Tesla just shows that this company can take it really far. But they just have to manage all their production and be able to maintain a solid standard in what they produce. And I think if that is realized, they can take it really, really far and really be the game changer that they can be in the current market.
I completely agree with what Matthias just said, 100%. And I also want to mention that one of the uncertainties with Tesla right now is their acquisition of SolarCity. So like that acquisition has to yield return, and that part of the whole company is a bit more unclear. And I wish that people can, like look at that risk a bit more, because SolarCity it might be a very good investment, but it might also backfire pretty hard. So yeah, like also take into consideration the SolarCity acquisition.
Well, then
Okay,
these are the
perfect.
conclusions for the Tesla model release. And let's move on to the next news. So, Alitalia files for bankruptcy. So, why did this happen, and what is going to happen with the company? So obviously, what the main cause of this is that they've always been a failing company. They've always been saved by the Italian government, and they owe about between 3.3 billion and 4.4 billion. I've been seeing a lot of different numbers. They owe the government a hell lot of money. So obviously this provoked that the company wanted to do some pay cuts, and the employees were not very fond of this new in company change. So they didn't vote in favor for it. They vetoed it. So the main investors of Alitalia decided to pull their funding out until all of this problem was resolved. So what can we learn about this, Matthias? You wanted to say something.
Yeah, well, basically, you're completely right. Um, I think the bailouts have happened too many times already, and at this point, the uncertainty has grown so big that even the employees and people that are working for Alitalia lost their trust in the company. So now it's time to pull the plug. And the problem is, I mean, I can give you some market data. So the Italian market share actually fell to 18% in 2015, and in 2008, where they had again already a near bring to bankruptcy, they still had 23%. And I think this really shows that their positioning is having big trouble to keep up with how the market has been evolving, with the likes of, for example, Ryanair in the cheaper sectors, or for example, in markets where they were still strong, for example, flying to United States. Now the Emirates Airlines stop in Milano to pick up guests flying from Dubai to New York. So you really see that Emirates, we all know, is a great company. Alitalia is just having trouble focusing their strength in certain markets and trying to branch out into many, and obviously don't have the strength to fight against what they see as their competitors. So, I mean, if you try to focus on short-haul cheap flights and also try to cater to a different market, flying to long-haul destinations, as a weak company, this can't work in the long run. And we're seeing that Alitalia is really suffering from this. And now, since we've identified the problem, filing for bankruptcy doesn't mean that the Italian pride of Alitalia is going to disappear. But this is just a sign that says Alitalia has to start taking cuts, sell out parts that they're not profitable, and just focus on their core markets and try to develop them to maybe start off as a smaller company, but start being a bit more successful than they have been in the past. Would you agree with this?
Yeah, so they're basically gonna have to revamp everything so that it starts working. This is so in a sort of way, this is the best thing that can happen to them. They are gonna try to remake their company model, and obviously they're gonna have the help of Etihad, which is one of the main investors. They have 49% of the shares. So we'll see what happens. What do you have anything to say about this topic, Adam?
I'm actually trying to look up like their assets, like how much their assets is worth, because like when an airline defaults, I've been wondering just recently how they auction out their assets and what kind of companies buy them.
Yeah, that's very interesting to look at. Like from what I know is mostly since, for example, airplanes are really expensive, everything happens on a lease. Everything in this business happens on a lease. So it would be really interesting to see who and how the takeovers work. For example, with all the airplanes that were scheduled for different lengths of flights, and if they pull out of certain markets, some airplane models become obsolete to Alitalia. So what happens with, for example, these airplanes? They're probably going to sell it to other companies then.
Like Emirates maybe, because they own 49%, right? Or Etihad.
Etihad.
Yeah,
For example,
exactly.
let's take a look at what Emirates does. Emirates, all their resources, all their assets, they own them. They own everything, obviously, because they have the money to start out. They had the money to start out and own everything from the beginning. So obviously they have all these A380s and everything they make is for them. It's not for a investor that decided to lease the plane. So I guess it's kind of difficult to reach the level of Emirates Airlines since obviously they didn't have such a immense amount of funding from the beginning. But I think it's very interesting to see such a big company, such an important company with about 1,200 employees they had, didn't they? Reach this point. So it's interesting to see what will happen. They do owe about 4.4 billion, and that they have to pay by the end of February. I think they will probably the Italian government has accepted this filing for bankruptcy. So I guess they're probably going to be able to negotiate for a new price to pay. Maybe they're gonna be they're not gonna have to pay as much of the debt, but it's interesting to see what will happen. Any conclusions?
Exactly. Alonso, I need to do one correction. So there are actually around 14,000 employees, not 1,400 employees at Alitalia.
14.
So
14,000.
the problem, 14, yeah, 14. Yeah, no worries. Well, the conclusion is, I guess we have to wait for the future, to really see now what steps are going to be taken to save which part of the company and how to move forward. But what we know for now is that bankruptcy has become highly likely after the no vote from their internal customers. So time will tell what's going to happen.
Yeah, and what we not look forward to, but what we can expect is how other airlines are gonna, get affected by their default. Like, I think we can all agree that they're gonna default, right? But how is this gonna affect
Exactly.
the airline, industry? Like, which companies are gonna gain from this, or
Exactly.
most likely all of them are going to gain. Nobody is not gonna gain from it. Like, so yeah, we'll see like which one gains the most. Could it be like Emirates, Etihad? Could it be Ryanair on domestic and like European domestic flights? We'll see.
Also see if this is going to be bad for tourism, because probably airline companies are going to increase the prices, because they're probably going to have a lot of influx of new customers that used to be Alitalia customers. So it's interesting to see. So let's move on to the next news. Oil prices take a dump. So I've been hearing about predictions saying that it might drop even below $39 a barrel, Brent barrel. So it's going to be, I don't know, Adam, maybe you know a bit more about this market trends in oil prices.
I haven't been that much into oil actually. It's not one of those commodities that I in general follow. I know like the basics about it, of course, but there was one thing I actually wanted to mention that I think is very interesting. And I'm going a bit off topic now, but I'm gonna make it short. So you guys know about the crisis in Venezuela, right?
Hmm.
How like the inflation is like completely out of control, and like
Exactly.
yeah, it's completely like fucked up right now. But sorry about that. But uh, so in general, did you guys know that Venezuela has one of the biggest oil reserves in the world?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
that
Exactly.
is true.
And one like one thing that we can see like how badly they fucked up their own economy is when you look at that they're actually starting to import oil when they have one of the biggest oil reserves themselves. Did you guys know about that?
Yeah,
No, we didn't hear about this.
So
yeah,
they're
that,
actually
yeah.
importing oil instead of using their own resources, and they're completely bankrupt.
It's even cheaper for them to bring in rather than take it out themselves, basically.
And
Yeah,
like
because
considering that their inflation is so high, like that makes the currency obviously like very shitty, and that makes importing even more expensive. So like it's actually like worse than you would think it is. Even like the oil prices are going down, the inflation is increasing for them, which makes their purchasing power like decrease,
mm.
and they're still importing oil. Um,
So I think it's we should talk about the reason why prices are going down. So we have let's say kind of two oil regions. Let's say we have OPEC countries that they all belong to this very united group of oiling countries, where they together decide prices and how to maintain the markets and everything. But obviously, there's countries outside of the OPEC, which, well, they basically do whatever they want. Venezuela, Kazakhstan, they are not from the OPEC countries, so they to sell more, they reduce the prices, and this in turn um, provokes other countries to have to reduce their prices to be able to make a profit out of uh, out of oil. Even I think even the what was this country name? I forgot. And then one next to UAE. Sorry. Um,
Kuwait,
no,
Qatar.
no.
United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, the UAE. So they are actually keeping oil instead of selling it until the price goes back up. So they're basically not making any money because that's basically their only main source of income in those countries.
Well, the thing about OPEC and price in general, they don't. It's illegal to agree on price first of all. So they just agree on the output. So the output actually dictates the price within the market. So you're completely right that OPEC countries have agreed to limit for this year the output of barrel, I think, for 1.8 million barrels per day. They wanted to put it down, and they agreed this with some of the non-OPEC members, such as heavy producers like Russia, United States, or China, which indeed these countries followed. But you're again correct with that other countries who base their economy on oil, for example, did not adhere to these new standards and still showed trend in flooding the market because they need the income. And this obviously has a big effect on how the price is developing. And I think this whole story just really shows us that actually the OPEC countries are not anymore the dictators in the market of oil, that they're not the main players anymore, and that the market has become much more complex than when it was a few decades ago when the OPEC was formed.
Yes, I mean obviously.
Agreed.
Sorry about having this misunderstanding. Obviously, they agree into a certain amount of things so that they can save the prices. Unfortunately, they've been non-OPEC countries and OPEC countries have been doing whatever they wanted. So this in turn has caused the oil prices to drop radically, and now they're paying the price for it, for doing whatever they wanted. So I guess this is going to kind of push for a greener solutions now, which is good, I guess.
So, wait, this actually moves back to Tesla a bit. Like the reduced oil prices are actually not a good news for Tesla.
Exactly.
Just to put that in.
Or it is.
Yeah, nice
I mean,
link.
obviously, countries are going to probably try to push for greener solutions so that they don't have to make a loss from oil prices.
But
that's the second derivative.
As a car company, you are happy that the oil prices are low because then people are gonna drive more.
Yes, of course, but for the government, this is a loss. They're gonna be losing money if they're not making any money from oil. Extracting it and moving it from one place to the other costs money. So if moving X amount of oil costs more than what you're selling it for, it's going to suck for you, basically. So they're probably going to push for greener solutions so that more cars don't use any oil at all, and so they could probably try to push up the prices again and use it more for things like PVC or electricity producing. So it's kind of interesting to see what will happen.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point you also raised there, because we're at the moment in conflict. All the governments around the world are taxing us so much for driving a car, for having a car, for using fuel. So there's an interest conflict for the for the countries, because actually a low oil price will give them a steady flow of income anyway. So they don't really want to change, because they first have to find out where they can then tax on electric cars, because not every state owns, for example, electric companies. So you see, a lot of governments are not really that super interested in pushing the electric market per se, because there's so many interests involved still with oil producing countries, because they're fueling our car markets. But anyway, so this really wandering off topic now and looking at the big picture.
Yes, I think we can briefly mention what's also going on within the French elections.
Exactly, correct.
Yes.
So we make the curve back.
Today
Alonso, please.
is the day that we will know who is going to be the next president of France. So the two candidates are Macron and Le Pen. Le Pen being a kind of socialist populist, and Macron being a kind of conservative, which is pushing for a lot of innovation and changes inside of France, more globalization also as well. So it's interesting to see. Let's talk a bit about their programs. Do you guys want to say anything about these two candidates before we talk about the programs?
I actually wanted to ask both of you your predictions. Which one do you think is going to win, Alonso?
Well, obviously everything is pointing towards Macron. Macron will obviously win by around 20 points, 60 to 40. So I think it's.
So your prediction is 60 to 40. Macron.
It's the predictions that the statistics have been showing, but I can't really say for sure. I haven't been really following what's been happening. Kind of just hearing and listening to the news about companies, but I think I think Macron will win. Yes, and I think it's a good step it's a positive step for France, because he's pushing a lot for innovation, and this innovation comes in the form of improving services, digitalizing them, and whatever cost it's going to take for the improvement in services is going to give back in the long term. And he's also planning to invest 50 billion euros in economic improvements, making also services and their own companies more cost effective. So,
can you explain a bit what you mean by economic improvements? What does that entail?
well, investments in new assets, resources for companies so that they can also employ more people. Also, investments in education. Not only invest economically, but also invest humanely. He's going to push for more integration of, students from different nationalities and backgrounds, and also going to help children and teenagers have a professional future. So he's going to help expand companies, and this will also create employment, which will also create a better economy for France. Also, he's also begun pushing for changes in the EU, especially for farmers, for French farmers, to make them more competitive, because farmers in France have been at a loss. They've been not being able to sell their products outside of France, and not even in France. So Macron is also going to make companies buy French products rather than products from outside of France, especially.
So how is he planning to do that? Like reduce it to taxes or increase tariffs for imports, or
I haven't looked that much into it. I know he's going to try to negotiate with the EU to change sort of some things so that the economies in Europe, especially, this would also be good for Spain. They can sort of be more competitive inside their own markets, because yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, Matthias. Alonso, he's going for 60-40 to Macron. What's your bet?
Well, I think Macron is going to win. I don't have any numbers for you, but the thing is, which has been noticed now throughout a lot of press I've read, the problem is Macron is going to win, but the hook of this story is not because he has so many supporters, but it's more because he's the lesser evil of the two. So a lot of people, and we saw this already in the first run, the votes were pretty spread, at least for, let's say, top three, and also maybe the fourth candidate in the ranking. So a lot of people don't want Le Pen, so they're going to vote for Macron. And this is, in the end, it's really good for the EU that Macron is going to win, because he's going to remain in the EU and solidify the position which we're having with the crisis now that the United Kingdom left, and the fear that more candidates might follow, if we look at the big picture. So my vote is for Macron, that he's going to take the win today, but we'll see. So how about you, Adam? What do you think?
Oh.
I'm going for 55-45 to Macron.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so. Yeah, I agree. Macron is gonna win. I'm fairly sure. Or you can never be sure, but exactly. It seems probable. So
it would suck so much if we just released this show, and then when listeners are gonna be listening tomorrow and they're gonna know already the results, they're gonna be saying, "Well, you guys messed up. Le Pen won."
I was surprised by you going so hard at it, Alonso, with the 60-40.
Yeah,
not risk averse at all.
Pretty hardcore, yeah. 60-40, all in, Poker face Alonso, 60-40.
For sure. You also said 60-40. So anyways,
no, I didn't give. Alright, yeah, I really have to go, unfortunately.
So, alright, let's close in. This is all for today in economic news. Thanks for listening, and you will be able to read everything we talked about using the links in the description down below. Thank you, Matthias. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alonso.
So,
and until next time.
And